you think it would be simple. I've been doing it a long time, but even just from a marketing perspective, you would think that really smart people would be able to figure some of those things out, but sometimes they're just disconnected on a couple of those things, and it makes all the difference in the world.
One thing that we also talked about earlier, offline before we started, is expanding outside of real estate. So like my team is breathing down my neck. It's like, Steve, we need to do more sales training outside of real estate investors because the market's only so big. An understandable, conversation. At the same time, I don't know a lot of industries where the margins are so large, the margin of error is so large that, you can spend a significant amount on the sales team. I'm thinking generally speaking, if you have like an insurance salesperson or, you're selling most items, there's not enough margin there to justify spending a good amount on sales training. So you're talking about expanding outside of real estate. So what has been your experience in that?
We haven't started that process yet. So we just did the rebranding. If you can see, actually can't see my shirt there. There's a little delay here. There you go, 10X TV. There you go. So there's the new logo. So we decided to rebrand it. We were calling it Real Estate Masters TV, but we decided to change it to 10X TV because we are going to expand it outside. And so the way that it looks is, we know that real estate works really well, partly because I've got 10 years of TV experience now, so I know what works and what doesn't for myself, and now we've tested it and it's worked for a lot of clients. And so how do we take that outside of the real estate industry? And like you said, we have big margins in real estate, right? So, you could have $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 months, right? So people can afford TV, people can afford sales training. For scaling outside of real estate, it's just gonna have to be the same thing where it's high ticket items, right?
Yeah.
I may call it high ticket TV, right? Or something like that, but it's gonna be attorneys, it's gonna be doctors, it's gonna be roofing companies. Roofing companies have amazing margins and they can, turn a roof in a couple days. It's gonna be HVAC contractors, basically anywhere where there's high ticket items, high margins, and their turnaround time is low. And obviously attorneys may be the exception to that, because sometimes it'll take them a few months or maybe even a year, or 2 years to get their
because I think you don't really need to reinvent this, right? You just have to stay home one morning and just watch The Price is Right, and you got all those attorney ads like, have you been mesothelioma, or have you been injured in a car accident? You already have your target audience probably from that.
If they don't already have someone running their commercials.
Well, right, but know the avatar, what industries they're willing to pay.
Absolutely.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
You're right. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so you said you're just exploring this at the moment.
Yeah, my media guy that runs this back end for me. So the story behind TV, I'll just tell it real quick, is I met a guy at a networking event, and he invited me to a poker game. So we go down to the guy's basement, the friend of a friend, and I see this guy that I've noticed that's on TV. And so this whole celebrity factor of like, oh wow, it's cool, man, I get to talk to this guy. So I sit next to him and start talking to him, and I was like, hey man, how your TV commercials doing? He's like, man, we're doing like $2 million a year of construction business and all we do is TV. And I'm like, wow, that's super cool. And so I start drilling him on it, and he's like, it might be good for your business. Why don't you call my guy Drew, and he can tell you more about it. He's the one that did my production and did the ad buying and stuff like that. So I told him my business and everything, and he's like, yeah, for probably a few $1,000s a month, I can get you hundreds of commercials a month. And I'm like, oh, that's sweet. And so I come up with the scripts and, give him the graphics I think would be good. So we collectively worked on it, and within 30 days I had a commercial, and spent $3,000 my first month and made $35,000. And then that was 8 years ago, or 10 years ago now. And it's been anywhere from a 5 to 12x return on my money since then. So that's kind of how TV started. Go back to your last question. What was your question again?
I was talking about what is your plan, or how do you plan on growing this other arm?
Yeah, so so what I was getting to is that my media guy Drew has been doing this for 20 years. He knows TV like the back of his hand. So for me, it's me going out and finding people, educating them on what works. I've got a really good formula that works. When we sat down and we said, okay, we're gonna launch this out, like what is the formula? What made our commercials work when some other people's didn't? Or what could be the drawback? And so we have 5 main things that we went through that said, okay, these are the 5 things that need to be really good for commercials. And when someone comes to me and they say, hey, my commercials didn't do very well, it's usually because they're missing one or quite a few of those things. And so, so basically what we do is we take that formula, plug it into any other business, and then my media team, which is Drew and his team that's behind the scenes that does all the ad buying, they're really good at negotiating rates. So they can go to stations where if you went directly, I mean, you're a good negotiator, obviously, but like if you went to a station and you said, hey, I want to spend money on your station, can you tell me what the package would be? Can you tell me what, times of day to be on and all that kind of stuff? They'd probably try and sell you the most expensive stuff. They probably wouldn't understand your avatar. I mean, that's happened to me so many times with different things that I've done where they just don't understand the avatar. And they're just gonna be way more expensive. So like last week I had a client come to us, or someone come to us and say, hey, we started TV, I just want to fully disclose that. We started it like 2 months ago and we just not getting any leads. And I said, how much you spending? He said $5,000, or it might've been like $4,000, 4,500, something like that. And I said, how many commercials are you getting a month? He said 40. And I'm like, so we already have one client in that market. So I went and looked and I said, for that ad spend, we can get you like 400 to 500 commercials a month. Right? And then what shows are you airing on? So he kind of named some and I'm like, that is not your avatar. Like they're totally screwing you.
Yeah.
So anyway, so and we've done that with probably a handful of people where they're like, my TV commercials didn't do well. And so not only are they on the wrong stations and maybe shows, but their phone number's not easy to remember. Their website's too long. Their message isn't clear. I mean, there's so many different things that you think it would be simple. I mean, I've been doing it a long time, but even just from a marketing perspective, you would think that really smart people would be able to figure some of those things out, but sometimes they're just disconnected on a couple of those things, and it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, I mean, marketing is one of those things that you can learn if you go out and like spend some time to figure it out, but it's not intuitive. Like there's just so many areas that things could break if you don't think about it, right?